What's up, everyone? We know the last thing you need is another fitness podcast to catch you up on the newest trends and fad diets based off of popular opinion and not research. Enter myself, Marianna, and Tony. We made the Fitness Stuff podcast to make exercise and nutrition science practical. Our goal is to expose misinformation in the industry by providing only evidence-based education. Where today, we are going to cover the coveted 10,000 steps a day. Do you really need to do it? How is it important? What's the effect on your health? Is it all living up to the hype? We're going to get into it. But before we get started, as a friendly reminder, our show is free and always will be free, but we love it when you support us. If you could leave a rating down below, it really helps us to continue to grow and reach as many people as possible. You can leave a comment, you can ask us questions on DMs, but those ratings really, really help. Let's get right into it.
Let's get stepping.
Let's get stepping. How are you? How are we today?
I'm good.
Energized?
I'm good.
Are you get your 10,000 steps
well,
in?
Heads up, everybody, because here's how we do this podcast. A little behind the scenes. Before each episode, we go over the outline the other person set up. Here's what we're talking about. Here's how we're going to guide the episode. We got heated for this one, actually. Mm-hmm. Shockingly, you're like, what? Step? What? Why are we getting heated? We'll tell you why, because it's crazy. So that woke me up a little bit, but I'm excited. I get to go to Lollapalooza this weekend with my good friend Richard and my girlfriend Karina. Never been to a 4-day festival before, so that should be fun. So I'm excited.
I've never been to a festival.
Exhausted from lack of sleep, but very excited. How are you? Did you down your...
I'm still working on it. I was just going to say I'm excited because I remembered I'm going to Target this evening, and here Tony is like... I live far away from a Target, and I'm so excited to go.
Incentives. That's what we're talking about. Incentives. We get freaking Target. I actually love Target. It's a solid place to be.
I love Target.
And if you can't see, Marianna's got her entire blender full of smoothie. Do. Getting those micros.
It's almost gone now, but I add ice to my smoothies, so they're just like huge. They just increase in size.
She's been heads up working on this for like 3 hours, probably. So you guys might get to experience the finish of it, which would be pretty cool. Today, we're going to determine the legitimacy of the 10,000 step claim, which I guarantee, unless you live under a rock, you've heard of that before. Hit your 10,000 steps. Yep. Hit your 10,000 steps. Have you hit your 10,000 steps? We're going to cover where that number came from.
I'm laughing because you've definitely heard that from me. I will post on my stories. Yeah. Have you hit your steps yet?
You do that a lot. Okay. We'll talk about where the 10,000 number came from. Random number. How many steps you should be aiming for, if not 10,000. We're going to go over, and this is where we got heated, research surrounding daily step count and movement, which actually, there's a large body of research surrounding this topic, which got to calm myself down before we get into. And how your step goal fits into your fat loss or your building muscle goals. That's what we're going to talk about today. That's a pretty good review, right? Was that your dog?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm sorry. Did you hear that?
I heard a dog burp. That's what I heard.
My dog, it wasn't me.
Burps are cute. Dog burp. So let's get into this. Because, okay, the first thing is, like, where the heck did this come from? This was actually what I was most interested in. Because I'm like, I always wonder, like, where something starts. I don't know why. I was the annoying kid that would always ask why a million times. I'm like, why 10,000? Why? Is it special? Is it the best? So it came from the 1960s. A marketing campaign set by a Japanese company. We are getting tired. A Japanese company had a marketing campaign in the 1960s for a pedometer, a commercial pedometer. And they set the 10,000 step goal because it was catchy from the 1960s. And it took a few trends after that to get going. But now you hear it everywhere. 10,000 steps a day, which we're going to go over, is not a bad step goal whatsoever. It's a solid one. But we always talk about this. We don't like getting locked into very specific goals when your lifestyle, your activity, so many different things go into how many steps you should be walking per day. Don't let yourself feel bad if you can't hit 10,000 in a lot of scenarios. And there's some cases where you could easily be hitting more. But that's where 10,000 came from. Did you know that? Did you know?
I did not know that, actually. I think that's one of the few times, it doesn't happen nowadays, that something used for marketing actually is further studied and holds legitimacy later on. I don't think that will happen as much now.
And I don't know. Yeah, okay. I don't know if this is fair to say the research came from the marketing.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It's easy to see. You're so right. Where do trends come from? a marketing campaign somewhere. So
Yeah.
Was 12330 a marketing campaign or no? No, that was just some lady on TikTok.
Multiple.
Okay.
No, that was not. Someone coined that. She did.
No, but it wasn't
What's
I
her
was
name?
thinking, is it a marketing campaign or no?
No. She just started doing it.
I know what you're talking about, but it was
remember
that magic fat burning zone. But if it's an exact number and you're questioning it, it probably came from a marketing campaign. Now, we're going to go into quite a bit of research surrounding daily steps, movement. That's just the next logical place to be, because we want to break down why having a step count goal can be important, the difference it can make in your entire life and families' lives and generations' lives. No, I'm not exaggerating. Before we get into, okay, well, how many do you need? Where do we look at this? So let's talk about the research. Now, we are talking about coming out with a monthly episode or just a recurring episode talking about studies or research that just blows our freaking minds, where we just review several studies that blow Marianna or I's minds. And that's what I told her when I first came on. I said, this study that I'm going to be talking about, it's a systematic review meta-analysis. This would easily be mine, probably number one on that list. And I think she agreed. This is something that most people have heard about a little bit. And then I know the one that you're going to hit up next probably goes right there with it.
Yeah. And just for reference, because sometimes I'll get this from people, and when you include a meta-analysis in a review and they're like, that's only one study. If you just cite one reference, a meta-analysis includes a bunch of peer-reviewed studies, like a boatload, and it's summarizing the research and comparing the research from other studies and drawing conclusions from multiple. So I just want to
Okay, that's actually a very good point, which we almost should have an episode on that. A systematic review meta-analysis is usually taking quite, as you said, a boatload of different studies and saying like, okay, are we noticing patterns, trends? What can we draw from all of this data? It's not one study. It's not done with 10 people. It's not easy to dismiss compared to a regular study. So these are pretty freaking big, and that's the one we're going to start with. Now, this was actually fairly recent. I think it was released in either 2020 or 2021. So in the last 2 years it came out. And it was from the Food Safety Research Center in Iran. I always screw up names, so it's in Iran. The Food Safety Research Center. It was done over 7 studies, over 28,000 total participants. And in those 7 studies, over 175,000 in-person years. So the big difference being 28,000 total participants, how many years of their lives were looked at in this research was totaling over 175,000. Marianna, you used to interpret research for a living. Are those numbers big? Are those numbers small? Yeah. Are they meaningful?
Yeah, that effect size is huge. That's meaningful. When you're talking about population-wide research, and again, this is different. We're looking at trends. We're looking at commonalities in populations. We're looking at prevalence of disease in certain subgroups of people that participate in a similar behavior, which is being sedentary versus not being sedentary. And when you get into numbers that high, and you're able to control in your statistical analyses for so many other factors. We're talking regardless of, we're controlling for the fact of whether or not they're a smoker, whether or not they have a history of this disease. It's similar in men and women. It's insanity, and we do not nearly enough, especially on social media. I try to do it more, but no one seems to care. Talk about public health. This is what this is. A lot of it is public health research, and also then analyzing further, like using that public health research to do randomized control studies and look at, okay, let's take a smaller group. But it is just, this type of research should be really, really meaningful, because we're talking about people in the real world just like you. We're not controlling for it in a lab.
And it's multiple populations, which I love about most systematic reviews and different meta-analysis is it's over different populations, where if you're like, okay, if we're taking 20, 30 people from a state in the South and you take 20, 30 people from a state out west, they usually have different behaviors through their day. They have different patterns, different diets, different things like that. So if you're just taking one sample size of individuals, you can get some pretty meaningful progress studying one sample size. But when it's a pattern recognized amongst 28,000 individuals, 7 different studies, 7 different populations, like that's big. That's all we're trying to say. We're getting heated up. We've been talking about just the freaking size of this systematic review before we even talk about it for like 10 minutes. So let's go over these numbers. I'm going to repeat for dramatic overkill, 1, and 2, to make sure that you hear them. It's ghoulish overkill. It's ghoulish overkill. Okay, so in that review, 7 studies, 28,000 participants, 175,000 in-person years. What they found, and they were observing individuals from the lowest tier of people who averaged around 3,000 steps per day. It was 2,700, but around 3,000 steps per day, all the way up to the top tier group of 16,000 steps per day. So ranging everywhere in between, from 3,000 up to 16,000 steps per day. They found that rates, and they were linking this to all-cause mortality, which means death from all cause. Could be diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular disease. That's what that means. They found that rates of all-cause mortality were about 12% lower for every 1,000 steps you increased from the bottom. From top to bottom, a 12% lower rate of all-cause mortality, meaning 4,000 compared to 3,000, your risk goes down 12%. 5,000 to 4,000, your risk goes down about 12, all the way up to 16,000. That's the first piece, which should be mind-blowing enough, but we're not going to stop there. What's that face telling me, Marianna? Those shocking numbers to you right now?
Unfortunately, I wish I could have a bigger reaction. Like I do remember the first time I heard these numbers, I was sitting in my exercise physiology class. We were doing our unit on public health and physical inactivity, sedentary behaviors, and that the effect that has on disease outcome, and looking at trends amongst all Americans, not just the people in the South, not just the people out West, everyone, and the commonalities of what this environment, this built environment that we live in has made it so easy to do: sit, not move. And the repercussions of that are absolutely, I always say, don't fearmonger. You should be scared of that.
Okay, I'll agree with you. This is one thing that we can fearmonger. You should be afraid.
Yeah, because it's getting worse and worse. And I think probably we'll start seeing a lot more in the next 2 to 3 years. But there's ongoing research about the effects of sitting during COVID, during quarantine, on health outcomes. So looking at biomarkers in people with type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetics, healthy people, kind of before and after, how much they sit now, changes in their lifestyle since the pandemic, and how that's affected their health. Sitting is one of the worst things you could do for your health, and there is no argument against it.
Now, do you want me to give you some numbers to tell you how bad sitting is for you?
Yeah.
Let me reframe this. If those numbers didn't land hard enough for you, let me reframe this. 12% lower risk of all-cause mortality for every 1,000 extra steps you walk per day, up to 16,000. Now, if we repurpose that information, we're going to compare bottom to top groups, the most active group and the least active group, as far as what that risk looks like. Because if you're going 12% for every 1,000 steps, you're going up quite a bit. So when we take the lowest and the highest group, the lowest step count group saw a 3-fold greater risk of all-cause mortality compared to the highest step count group. Let me put that in perspective for you. All-cause mortality rates are only 70 to 80% higher in smokers versus non-smokers. 70 to 80% higher in smokers versus non-smokers, or individuals with a BMI of 40 or obese and a BMI of 23 in the healthy range. So this is essentially, I want this to land hard. The most active and the least active groups, you're seeing a bigger risk of all-cause mortality than if you were not smoking and you start smoking. than if you were in the obese category, which we know how terrible that is on your overall health, versus the healthy BMI range. I'm just like, it's shocking to me that okay, cigarettes are terrible for you. No,
terrible.
I do not want to say,
no,
just start walking more and then you can pick up your habit of smoking cigarettes. No, cigarettes are terrible for you. But I think, and tell me how you feel. In my head, and I think as a society, and you might smoke, you might enjoy it, you might be trying to kick a habit, whatever it is. If you see someone smoking cigarettes, the first thing that pops, I think, in most people's heads is, oh, that person clearly does not care about their health. That person clearly does not care about. That's usually what people think when they see someone smoking cigarettes. But how many times do we even bring up in conversation, oh, I have a desk job and I just go home and I don't really do much. Or I sit it blows my mind how much larger of a problem sitting all day can be and how much we shame other acts. Eating a burger, eating a piece of pizza. People on social media saying Diet Coke is bad for you. And we don't mention what this can do to people. I hope I'm not the only one freaking out about this.
No, and people get so worked up about certain foods and will spread misinformation about foods that are killing you and causing disease. And we have this research right in front of us about the mechanisms, not just the associations between being sedentary and your risk for disease, like the mechanisms to explain why this happens. Like sedentary behaviors reduce lipoprotein lipase activity, which is involved in metabolism, muscle glucose, protein transporter activities, impair lipid metabolism, impair carbohydrate metabolism, decreases cardiac output and systematic blood flow while activating the sympathetic nervous system, reducing insulin sensitivity and vascular function.
That was a lot of words.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something
let's put that in layman terms real quick, everything that just came out of Marianna's mouth. That was a lot real fast. It interferes with how your body just works. It makes your body work less efficiently in all of those measures. You don't have to know what each of those measures means.
Nope.
No bueno.
Yeah.
No bueno. No bueno.
But these are all markers of this profile, your blood biomarkers, that increases your risk for all-cause mortality. Those are all markers of people. So if you have impaired lipid metabolism, if you have impaired carbohydrate metabolism, you can look at that and say, oh, okay, these are predictors of either all-cause mortality or these are similarities amongst people that have died this way.
I think into that, not only is it decreasing I think people are like, okay, I might die earlier, even though that's pretty bad, but I know some people scoff that off. But I think people oftentimes forget, if you have a predicted earlier risk of all-cause mortality, your quality of life is not high. Your quality, you're not going on long walks. You're not swimming in the ocean when you're 65, 70 years old. You're sitting in a motorized scooter. You are overweight. You have to go to the doctor and take 15 pills. This is not a high quality life, which I think people forget about. And I'm so passionate about that piece of not only will you die earlier, but the last 5, 10, 20 years of your life will be significantly worse. Significantly worse than this too. It's a much bigger picture, and we're not trying to freak anybody out. But this is a big deal.
I don't want to be inconsiderate of the fact that, so we were just saying this before, some people, most people, the majority of people don't have a choice because they have to get up, they have to go to work, they need to pay their bills, put food on the table, and they have to sit at a desk job for 8+ hours a day and not move. That is the environment that we live in. There's no need to have to walk to get to work. Transportation is readily available. It's very rare for companies, if you are at one, that promotes movement and activity, even having some standing desk or taking a break at lunch. That is incredible. Very rare. Very rare.
Very rare. And again, hey, we're a solutions company. We thought this out for you. We're not just here to say, hey, here's some problems. Deal with them. So we're going to talk about different ways we can solve this. Now, you're going through all that of the metabolic processes. Do you have that information pulled up as far as the specific diseases that were more closely linked to it? That long list that you were going over beforehand, or
yes,
no?
Yes.
Okay, I want you to read that off, because all-cause mortality means death from all causes. Hit by a bus, cancer, everything in between. These, the one that you pulled up, were a little bit more specific, and I think that list is pretty impressive. And then I promise we're going to be more positive. Shane Hannard would be upset. I haven't breathed in like...
Yeah, I haven't been... I'm not breathing, but I didn't sleep well. So this is more specific, but a global level, so this is broader, not just talking about the U.S., which in the U.S. this is the most significant issue. But physical inactivity and non-communicable disease prevalence estimated that 6% of coronary artery disease, 7% of type 2 diabetes, 10% of breast cancer, 10% of colon cancer cases were caused by physical inactivity. Physical inactivity is closely associated with metabolic disorders such as impaired glucose metabolism, which substantially increases your risk for cardiovascular disease. It is so disturbing to me to read that, and that's on a global scale.
That scares the crap out of me, because you're right. That's on a global scale, and I think most people, even if you're not in the U.S., know U.S. is not gold standard for activity or health.
No.
Far from
no.
it. Okay. Do we want to turn this on a positive note, or do we want to?
Yes, we do, because
I'm getting depressed. This is not good. Lack of sleep. Terrible thoughts.
You want to talk about inflammatory behaviors? We have so many these people on TikTok, and we're like, that's inflammatory. Oat milk is inflammatory.
Yeah. Well,
that's inflammatory. Sitting all day is inflammatory.
Okay, that's seriously though, that's a big piece. And this is, again, to give anybody more comfort, because I know we talk a lot about, it's like there's no such thing as an individual good or bad food. The poison is always in the dose, right? There's no such thing as a good or bad food. Oh, but what about pizza? What about Diet Coke and aspartame? What about this? You just saw the massive effect that we talk about from just like, if you're taking care of your daily activity, big movers, things like that, your sleep, your protein intake, so you're preserving muscle, and your weight. If you can do those few things, a lot of those small, tiny things that people are afraid of do not come close to a fraction of what any of those things actually contribute to your overall well-being, health, and longevity. Like, this is one of those big players. I hope that gives people comfort the next time they see someone saying, oh, this is the worst thing you could put in your body. And it's like holding like a freaking can of milk. It's like, what? That's the worst thing?
Yeah. But you add that to sedentary lifestyle also promotes behaviors that are not the best for your health.
Yeah.
And the sedentary hyper-productive lifestyle that many people in corporate America live, it is not focused on, okay, how's my diet? Am I sleeping enough? There are so many other consequences of that lifestyle outside from just sitting. There are so many things that go into it, but it is, I feel like I was making that sound really scary, and there's certain things that I don't want to scare you, but almost like this is like, maybe that will get you up and putting in the extra mile to even try to wake up an extra hour earlier and try. I think about that TikTok that's when you want to lay on the couch and not go to the gym, and then it's like Chris Hemsworth is an ass man.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen that?
100%. I think that's why I love when we get to dive deeper into data. This is because I think putting hard numbers, solid numbers to it makes it real for a lot of people. Everyone knows sitting isn't good. Everyone knows walking is good. But now that we put hard numbers to it, you might be like, well, shit, I need to change this.
Yeah.
And we could throw in some Chris Hemsworth. We could probably create our own marketing campaign focused around this. We're pretty well versed. Positive spin on this. Now we're going to talk about a couple different things, right? Some different research that I thought was really interesting. And I just want to clarify this because then, of course, there's the overthinkers and all this, right? Okay, I need to walk more. Does the time of day matter? In the morning or the night? Should I do this and that? Now, I went through several research papers. I was interested in this. I was like, would it change the effect if you spread this movement throughout the day versus doing it more total? And this is more talking about step count, because I think this is something that we could bring up even more. Just because you go to the gym for an hour a day does not make up for not being active the rest of the day. That 1 hour of activity does not make up for 23 hours of inactivity. So I'm a bigger fan of spreading things out a little bit. Now, research has shown increased step count does improve gut microbiota. It improves mental health, which we're going to go over quite a bit, lowering stress, lowering anxiety, increases your NEAT or your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Now, the particular studies I was reading through, and these were only looking at the one from Arizona State showing 1 30-minute walk at the end of the day compared to 3 10-minute walks spread through the day. And they didn't notice any major differences outside of a small change in blood pressure. Nothing too crazy. Other research I found at the University of Wisconsin, which did something similar, 3 15-minute walks versus a 45-minute walk, measured 0 difference in output from things like your VO2 max, your body weight, or body composition. No real difference. If you're going on a longer walk at the end of the day, that's great. Get the step. Don't stress yourself out if you can't spread it out because you have a high demanding job or you're playing parent duty all day and you are just, which you're probably moving quite a bit if you're playing parent duty, but don't stress yourself out there. Now, the one thing I did want to touch on is some work that we were talking about beforehand that Stan Efferding, the freaking strongest dude I've ever seen in my life. I forget how old. I think he's 55, squatting like 5 or 6 plates. Like his legs are bigger than my body, and I've got a big body.
Oh, for sure.
Dude's
for sure.
Yeah, and he looks great for his age. He's phenomenal with what he does. Now, he oftentimes bring up, I want to be clear, I have not been able to locate the actual research that he quotes. So I might be guessing in situations like that. It's a lot more anecdotal. These hard numbers don't really matter as much, but it does make sense. He is a big advocate, and I think he actually coined the 10-minute walk post-meal. After your meal, go on a 10-minute walk. And what he noticed in his clients and himself is that it would have a massive effect on lowering blood sugars post-meal. Now, he's talked about specific numbers about how it lowers it twice as well as the leading type 2 diabetic medication, metformin. I could not locate the research for the life of me. That does not mean it does not exist. But I did not find something like that. But anecdotally speaking, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I was telling you before the show, I personally need to adjust my insulin about 30 to 40% lower of a dose if I know I'm going on a walk after a meal. Just because I know if I don't adjust it, my blood sugar is going to tank, I'm going to crash, and I'm a type 1. So there's probably some ties in there. I just did not find any hard papers to submit that. But the thought process makes a little sense that it would have an effect just from movement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to leave that out. It's not hard. I don't have a PMID for you, but it's interesting. Now, here's a cute little positive note that I want to go over. We're talking about where you walk, which can have an effect on mental health, which I do not want to discredit. If you're walking in a dumpster, I don't know where you could walk. Where's the worst? In hell? Walk in hell. Do it. It's better for you than nothing.
Hell.
I was like, what's the worst place you could walk? I was like, okay, hell's pretty bad. But something kind of cool, fun little fact. People are catching on. The world's catching on. Now, in 2009, 4 provinces in Canada, and I think in 2000 or 2021, up to 35 states in the United States can now prescribe free annual national park visits to their patients instead of medication. And this is adorable because the name of the program is PARX, like RX is prescription. That's parks, which I thought was just the cutest thing in the world. Parks. But they can prescribe that, and this is the cool thing because University of Chiba University in Japan, did a study with 585 test subjects and separated them into 2 groups. And this is, I thought, kind of cute, but kind of cool too, because it just furthers where we can look into the future. And they had the 2 groups either A, take their daily walks in a city setting, or B, take their walks in a forest setting, more nature. And they did find that walking through those forest areas decreased the negative moods of depression, tension and anxiety, anger, hostility, fatigue, confusion, and improved the participants' positive mood or vigor is what the name was in the study. So vitality, drive for life, more than those who walked in city areas, which I thought was just the coolest thing, which makes sense. You get some fresh air, change of scenery, change of pace. The city just constrains you a little bit. So I thought that was a cool little note. I thought that was a cool little note. And I know you do. And I know we're going to do a whole episode on things like this.
Yeah. I definitely was probably nicer when I lived in Vermont than in Boston. But I think Boston is just,
I think that. Okay, yeah, Boston's they're big meanies. But I actually, that would actually be an interesting look, is to see, you can't rate like niceness of people, but like where they live, cityscape versus nature. You'd think nature would have a little bit more of a profound effect of, a little calm, relaxed.
Yeah.
More empathetic.
Yeah. I feel like the environment is not as go, go, go. I just feel stressed whenever I step into New York City, like Manhattan. I feel stressed out.
Oh my God, yeah. You do. It's the same thing. I live downtown in San Diego, and it is same thing. I love it because everything's so close to me, but I do notice if I'm able to go up to like Big Bear or Lake Arrowhead for a weekend, I come back and I feel incredible. I feel like I'm a brand new person. It speaks volumes. But we got a few things to go over. So we want to break down for you. Again, we're solutions. We should just TM that. We're a solutions company. Fitness stuff. LLC. Hint, hint. Anywho, a couple different things as far as increasing cardio, because a big thing that Marianna and I agree with in programming for our clients. And the more we do this podcast, the more I love how we both actively have one-on-one clients that we can actually kind of like talk through anecdotal stories and say how we like a coaching approach, because I know a lot of coaches listen to this podcast too. So from a coaching perspective, from a client perspective, I think we can add that in. I know I'm a big fan of, especially during the fat loss phase, increasing step count. We'll talk about numbers here next. Increasing step count before adding on timed out higher intensity cardio sessions to a workout. Massive fan of this for several reasons, but you share the same view, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And why do you do that?
One, because I especially get a lot of people where time is really precious. It's like you don't have much of it. We work on getting into the habit of walking maybe a little bit every day versus like it's easier to take maybe 10, 20 minutes out of your day every day versus blocking in like a 30 to 45 minute cardio session throughout the day. This depends on the person, but also it just seems more approachable. Also, just for the pure fact that a lot of people hate cardio or get sick of it and enjoy walking. It's not as daunting, and especially if you're just beginning your journey of whether it's working out, eating a little bit healthier, wanting to lose some weight, like there's the least amount of barriers if you are, again, able-bodied to be able to walk. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need to have anyone else around you watching you. No judgment there. You can go on your own time. You can fit it in.
You talk about this a lot, is limbic friction. Like how many things are getting in the way of you doing something. And I'm a big advocate of this too, because I think I heard the first quote from Naval when it comes to books, because he's a big, books have the power to change your life. He's like, don't start by looking, okay, what's the best book I can read? Start by reading what you love until you love to read, and then you'll naturally go there. Same thing with exercise, because I know so many people are, what's optimal? What's the best possible split I could be doing? Whatever it is. If you're just starting and you don't have goals to step on stage, so 99.9% of the population, start by doing what you like or what comes easy, what you look forward to, and eventually you'll start to like it more, right? Do the exercise that you love, and you'll learn to love exercise because it makes you feel great, reward, and you can explore. Walking is one of the easiest things you can add in, you can jump to. And like you said, I'm on team. I hate freaking cardio. I would 10 times rather go on several small walks through the day, or even just walk on the treadmill shortly after a workout, rather than have to mentally gear up for, I got to do these sprints, I got to do these long intervals, whatever it might be. And I think a lot of clients we see share the same values, right?
Yeah. It's just so easy to give yourself like a way to be successful. One of the best things that I heard from James Clear, and he's talked about it before, when he talks about getting to the gym or going for a walk, just starting that. If you've never done it before, you're also struggling to even get yourself maybe out of bed, maybe mentally you're struggling to do something good for you. When it comes to walking, put on your sneakers, get outside. That's your goal. That's the start. If that is your starting point, one, there is so much room to improve. There's no other way but up. And you are setting yourself up for that positive reinforcement, that reward of, awesome, I put my shoes on, I got outside. And maybe you want to walk. Let's see how far I go from there. But you really don't have to have this, I have to do it for this amount of time. Before you know it, if you're doing this every single day, at a certain time, that's my cue. I have my clothes ready to go. I have my sneakers. I'm going to go outside. Or I'm going to go walk on the treadmill if you can't go outside because of whatever. It makes it really easy to be successful at a behavior that is good for your health. And for some people, honestly, the act of just starting, feeling like, okay, I deserve this, or I feel like I want to do this, because we were just talking about your mood and mental health, especially for a lot of people right now coming out of the pandemic and the effects, how that's
it gives
impacted.
You a win. It gives
so
you a big
like,
win.
Mm-hmm. And I always try to do that. Find as many ways where you can feel like you were successful at something versus, oh no, what if I can't finish this run? Or I don't think I'm going to be able to last on the elliptical for this long. And then you feel like you failed, even though the act of even getting yourself there is a huge win. So.
Big time. How would you teach your children something? Do you want to set them up so they're constantly losing? No, they're going to give up. They're not going to be motivated. You want your kids to win when they're learning something new as much as possible. Oh, they discovered they can do something new. You're not that different than kids.
Yeah.
When you're going through behavior change, it's astounding. And I think to this point too, because people are like, oh, you know what, but I want to be skinny shredded for summer, whatever it is. I got to do the cardio on there. It's like, okay, well, let's look at this. We know that the best training program is the one you can adhere to consistently. Now, I want to talk about some pros and cons of regularly scheduled cardio, higher intensity cardio bouts versus just simply increasing your step count, because I think that should not go unnoted. We got to realize when you're doing higher intensity cardio, it typically comes with an increase of appetite after your cardio session. Usually increases your appetite, which is usually a little bit harder to stick to a deficit. If we talked about this in previous episodes, your appetite is not dialed in. Not only that, but it increases the amount of stress you're putting on your body, which increases how much recovery time you're going to need. It increases the stress that you're putting on your body, which increases the amount of recovery you need to recover from that stress. Mm-hmm. Where walking, let's look at it, no notable effect on your appetite, unless you're walking, of course, like 20,000 steps, something insane. Almost no recovery needed. You could go walk 2 miles, eat lunch, and then go walk another 2 miles. Yeah. Very little stress on your body you don't need to recover from. And it's something you can enjoy. You could plug in an audiobook. You could plug in a great podcast like fitness stuff, whatever it is. So there are pros and cons. Ask yourself, truly, because cardio, high intensity stuff might be more worth it. If you've got an athletic background and you like going quick, hard, fast to get an increase in calorie burn, do it. Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. But don't feel bad if you feel like you have to drag yourself. Don't be like, I don't have the willpower to go through cardio. You're normal if that's you. Don't feel bad if that's you. Look at what steps can actually do for you. Let's talk about this. People are like, obviously I need to do more. How much more and what does that look like? We brought over this analogy and you might have a better one. I think someone asking, okay, how many steps do I need in a day is kind of like asking, how many calories do I need in a day? It's different for everybody. It depends on a million different things. How busy your schedule is. How active you are at your job. Are you sitting? Do you have a standing desk? Are you able to move around? Is it a physical job? How often are you training through the week? What do other stress markers in your life look like? This depends on a lot. So 10,000 might be a great place to be, but it doesn't have to be where everybody is. If you're a construction worker, honestly, if you're a construction worker, you're probably crushing like 15,000 steps a day. But you got to take all these things into account. My recommended goal, I typically like to sit people between 8,000 and 12,000 steps per day, depending on availability. Is that a solid scale, or would you adjust that at all?
I say that too. I give two different metrics though. So there is the numbers one, but then especially for people who have a desk job and that seems very daunting, maybe they're averaging like 3,000 steps a day. Mm-hmm. I'll say that as maybe a goal or a guide in the future, but right now, in terms of recommendations for what can reduce our risk for heart disease, all-cause mortality, just overall improve your health, the goal is to get 150 minutes a week of cardiovascular activity. It can be exercise, it could just be movement. Mm. So how can we space that, slowly work up towards the time thing? So for some people, it looks better to look at their week, because every day, maybe I can't get those 10,000 every day, but I do know where I can fit in 20 to 30 minutes. Or I know on this day I want to have the goal of 30 minutes. Okay, I have to do a 10-minute walk in the morning, 10 in the middle of the day, 10 in the afternoon. Again, it's a different approach for everyone, but I find that doing the time blocking can really help make it seem less daunting because you're in control. Okay, I'm going to include this. I know where I can include this in my schedule. I know where I have time versus about worrying about, oh, shoot, I didn't get those steps in yet. What time is it?
And bridge the gap. Like, Marianna freaking bringing it home like always. Bridge the gap. If you're averaging 3,000 steps per day right now, do not just say, I'm going to hit 12,000 starting tomorrow, because it's probably not going to work. That's a massive behavior change. If you want to space it out like that, if you want to just increase, hey, I'm going to try and hit 4,500 5 days this next week. That's a massive improvement. That's a massive improvement right there, just going from 3 to 4,500. Is it perfect? Is it optimal? Maybe not, but that's not the goal. The goal is better than before. That's the same thing. If we work with a client, I don't know about you, and we're trying to get a protein goal of 150 grams and they're averaging 40 grams, we don't just say, okay, increase to 150, I'll talk to you next week. That doesn't work. Make small changes from 40, 45. Let's see if we can reach to 70. Let's see if we can add a shake in to help get you there. Okay, we've consistently been hitting 70. Let's see if we can touch that coveted 100 mark. Because you being at 100 consistently is better than us trying to aim for 150 and failing. Same thing with steps. And then if you fail again, don't set those failures up for you. Set yourself up for wins. And I think people realize this, and of course, I'm even going to go like this to myself. I literally just said 8 to 12,000, which averages out to 10,000 a day, which is, again, not a bad place to be. So let's take that for an example and apply it a little bit more. And I broke this down, and this is, of course, nothing is going to be exact because of your rate of walking, your cadence, everything that goes with that. But I think it's helpful to break down, what does 10,000 steps in a day typically look like? Because I've seen videos on the internet like this. It's like, go on a 10,000 step walk for me and see how long it takes. And it ends up being about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes, which if I see that, I'm like, I barely have enough time for like myself in the day. I barely have enough time for myself. Zero chance I'm going on an hour and a half walk when I'm done with all this. Zero chance every day.
I have to pause. Can we pause? Yes. I think my dog's going to have an accident.
Oh God. Okay, go. Do. Go.
Come on.
Now that I've got you guys to myself, I want to talk to you about an investment opportunity. Just kidding. I'm probably going to go pee, and we're probably going to delete this from the recording.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh my God, that could have been so bad.
Let's start from this piece again, because we're almost wrapped up. Realistically, what does 10,000 steps actually look like in someone's day? Now, if we break it down, because like I said, we've seen videos on TikTok that is someone go on a 10,000 step walk with me. It takes them an hour and a half. You get done at the end of your day, 6, 7 o'clock, you got kids. You're thinking in your head, there is zero chance I'm going on an hour and a half walk every single day. Zero freaking chance. But that's not what 10,000 steps look like, right? You can take it to any level you want, but that's not realistically what it looks like spread through your day. So let's just do some math. Let's say 10,000 steps takes about an hour and a half total. An hour and a half total if you did it all at once. Now, let's look at your day. I think it's safe to assume you would accumulate around 2,000 to 3,000 steps just from daily activity. From work, getting ready in the morning, bathroom breaks, random movement, getting up for lunch, 2,000 to 3,000, maybe more if you have a more active job. There's 2,000 to 3,000 right there. Let's say you go to the gym for a weight training session, an hour most days of the week. There's an easy 1,000 to 2,000 steps on top of that. Now, that should get you close to 5,000, or at least ballpark with that, leaving you 5,000 steps that you have to add through walking, where you actually take time to walk. 5,000 steps would equate to about 45 minutes if our first estimate was right. And 45 minutes, again, you're like, I don't have that time. That's a 15-minute walk after breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and boom, you're at 10,000 steps every day. Adding a 50, eat breakfast, go take a lap around the building, your neighborhood, 15 minutes. At lunch, if your employer doesn't give you 15 minutes to go walk, I'm going to say find a new employer. I got to stop telling people to quit their jobs. Find a new employer. But for real, like if your employer doesn't let you go on a 15-minute walk after lunch, make him listen to this episode and be like, boss man, you're giving me cancer and diabetes and metabolic disease. Are you okay with that? And make him say it right to your face. And I know some bosses that would do that. But that's what it actually looks like, which is not that daunting. I don't think it's that daunting when you lay it out like that. A couple walks after each meal of the day and boom, we're at 10,000 if you add it up. That is not terrible for 10,000. And you might be a person who 8,000 is a great place to be. That's even less.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect place to break it out and make it like applied through the day. I think that's a good plot. And now Mariana's in the dark.
My
So
light just went out.
I think this is going to be a good place to wrap this episode up. I think things are falling apart. The wheels are falling off. We're going to wrap this one up. We just made it across the finish line. And I think, honestly, one of my favorite episodes to date. I really do. This was one of my favorite ones compared with the alcohol episode as well. You know where to find us, though.
Okay. Alcohol episode.
I did love the alcohol.
Listen to that if you haven't.
That was one of my favorites. One of my favorites to date. You all know where to find us, where we post clips, edits after the show, Instagram, TikTok, fs.pod. On our YouTube channel, you can give us a thumbs up, comment what you think. As always, DM Marianna and I if you have questions after listening to this episode. You made it through the whole thing. Ask us questions. If you're still lost, if you're still confused, if you need any clarification, we love to answer that. And one more time, thank you to everyone who's rated and taken the 5 or 10 seconds after this to go rate this episode 5 stars in Apple, in Spotify, wherever you are. You can even do it while you're listening to this. It legitimately, I don't think, if you want us to get as heated as we did about that study, that systematic review, we'll do it because that's how it makes us feel inside. Makes us feel great. So ending this one on a positive note, we barely made it, but we hope you're having a better day than us so far. We, as always, love you, care about you. We hope you have a productive finish to your day or evening if you're winding down for the night. And we thank you always for tuning in. Marianna, any send-off notes?
I need a nap.
She needs a nap.
Go take a walk.
Go take a walk. Go take a nap. Take care of yourself. We love you. Have a good day.